Good afternoon, fellow recovery addicts. My name is Tim S. Grateful to be in recovery. Usually I just did the reading and started yesterday reading just for today, but I'm going to add to it by reading How It Works, Chapter 4 in the basic text. So here we go. Chapter 4, How It Works. If you want what we have to offer and are willing to make the effort to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. These are the principles that made our recovery possible. 1. We admitted that we're powerless of our addiction, that our lives have become unmanageable. 2. We came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. We made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. We made a certain fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. We admitted to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects and characters. 7. We humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. We made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. We made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. We continued to take personal inventory and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. We sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will first and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to addicts and to practice the principle of all our affairs. It sounds like a big order and we can't do it all at once. We didn't become addicted in one day, so easy does it. There's one thing more than anything else that would defeat us in our recovery. That's an attitude of indifference or intolerance towards spiritual principles. 3 of these that are indispensable are honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. With these, we are well on our way. We feel that our approach to the disease of addiction is completely realistic, for the therapeutic value of one addict helping another is without parallel. We feel that our way is practical, for one addict can be best understood, understand and help another addict. We believe that the sooner we face our problems within our society and everyday living, just that much faster do we become acceptable, responsible, and productive members of that society. The only way to keep from returning to active addiction is not to take that first drug. If you're like us, you know that 1 is too many and 1,000 is never enough. We put great emphasis on this, for we know that when we use drugs in any form or substitute one for another, we release our addiction all over again. Thinking of alcohol is different from other drugs has caused a great many addicts to relapse. Before we came to many of us viewed alcohol separately, but we cannot afford to be confused with this. Alcohol is a drug, period. We're people with the disease of addiction who must abstain from all drugs in order to recover. Okay, I'm right back. Alright, I'm back. June 17th, just for today. Walls. Reaching out is the beginning of the struggle that will set us free. It will break down the walls that imprison us. Basic text, page 83. Many of us came to innate emotionally shattered. Because of using people and allowing them to use us has taken a toll on our ability to trust anyone, ourselves included. With the love and acceptance we found in Narcotics Anonymous, encouraged us to reach out and get close to others. The longer we stayed clean, the more we began to long for greater intimacy with our loved ones. We began by reaching out in deeper, more meaningful ways, even though we might get hurt. Despite our fears of rejection, we decided to risk revealing ourselves, our beliefs, and our needs. We decided to let down our defensive walls. The freedom we found has been worth the risk involved. We know there's still work to do before we will be completely free of the barriers built by years of active addiction. But by reaching out to other addicts and allowing them to reach out to us, despite our human failings, we have come to know that we have a great capacity for love and intimacy. When set free of the restraining walls, our hearts hold great power. Just today, I'll let down my personal walls and reach out to others. I'll allow my heart to the freedom to love and be loved. Now on to basic text, page 83. Covering relapse, corresponding page from just for today, page 83. The progression of recovery is a continuous uphill journey. Without effort, we start the downhill run again. The progression of the disease is an ongoing process even during abstinence. Becoming powerless and the power that we seek comes to us through other people in Narcotics Anonymous, but we must reach out for it. Now, clean in the fellowship, we need to keep ourselves surrounded by others who know us well. We need each other. Narcotics Anonymous is a fellowship of survival, and one of its advantages is that it places us in intimate, regular contact with the very people who best understand and help us in our recovery. Good ideas and good intentions do not help if we fail to put them into action. Reaching out is the beginning or the struggle that will set us free. It will break down the walls that imprison us. A symptom of our disease is alienation, and our sharing will free us to recover. We are grateful that we were made so welcome in that meeting that we felt comfortable. Without staying clean and coming to those meetings, we would surely have a rougher time with the steps. Any use of drugs will interrupt the process of recovery. We all find that the feelings we get from helping others motivates us to do better in our own lives. If we're hurting, and most of us do from time to time, we learn to ask for help. We find that pain shared is pain lessened. Members of the fellowship are willing to help a relapse or recover and have insight and useful suggestions to offer mass. Recovery found in Narcotics Anonymous must come from within, and no one stays clean for anyone but themselves. In our disease, we are dealing with a destructive, violent power greater than ourselves that can lead to relapse. If we have relapse, it's most important to keep in mind that we must get back to meetings as soon as possible. Otherwise, we may only have months, days, or hours before we reach the threshold again where we are gone beyond recall. Our disease is so cunning that it can get us in impossible situations. When it does, we come back to the program we can. 1, 2 years, we are under control of our disease. And now I'm going to read from Spiritual Principle Day, June 17th. After that, I'll read the corresponding page in the book, whether it's Which on Why, just today, or Spiritual Principles, to match up with Spiritual Principles today. Building trust and trustworthiness. So we're developing a relationship with the sponsor. We learn about the principles of trust. It works step 1. More often than not, a last-ditch effort to stay out of jail, keep a job, or hang on to a relationship drives us through the doors of NA. We'd stopped using plenty of times before, but saying stop seemed beyond us. We knew something had to be changed, and honestly, we had nothing to lose. When we looked around at the first meeting, we saw people who understood our plight because they had been there. They experienced the high price of low living. In a program worked for them, maybe it'll work for us. Desperation may have brought us in, but inspiration keeps us coming back. Trust hasn't been on our radar, but somehow willing to accept a few suggestions just a few days in, and we committed to attending a meeting for 90 days. We even reach out to other members between meetings. With each passing day, we feel a little better and trust in any way a little more, and our actions show it. We've begun to trust the process, but we'll need a guide, a sponsor, if we want to give this a fair shot. You don't have to trust everyone, we're told, but you've got to learn to trust someone. This seems like solid advice. The source of more experienced members seems trustworthy. How about you? You respond. Will you sponsor me? It takes time for most of us to shed our armor, but sponsors have a way of gaining our trust little by little. One of us shares some truths about our life and experience, and the other returns the favor, as one would put it. In the process, we develop trust and eventually intimacy. It's a pattern of behavior we can replicate in other relationships. As sponsees, sponsors, partners, and friends. Follow my sponsor's example. I'll build that trust a little at a time. I'll learn to trust and be trustworthy in small moments by being true to my word, supportive of others, and open intimacy. And now we're going to read the corresponding page. Step 1, New York Town 1. New York Town Y, Step 1. Oh, this is a long reading. Pages, so I'll do my best to slow down with reading, not stumble over my own words. Step 1, we admit that we're powerless over our addiction, that our life has become unmanageable. As addicts, we have each experienced the pain, loneliness, and despair of addiction. Before coming to AA, most of us tried everything we could think of to control our use of drugs. We tried switching drugs, thinking that we only had a problem with one particular drug. We tried limiting our drugs use to certain times and places. We may even have vowed to stop using altogether at a certain point. We may have told ourselves we would never do the things we watch other addicts do, and find ourselves doing those very things. Nothing we had tried had any lasting effect. Our active addiction continued to progress, overpowering even our best intentions. Alone, terrified of what the future held for us, we found the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous. As members of Narcotics Anonymous, our experience is that addiction is progressive disease. The progression may be rapid or slow, but it's always downhill. As long as we're using drugs, our life will steadily get worse. It would be impossible to precisely describe addiction in a way that is agreeable to everyone. However, the disease seems to affect us in the following general ways. Mentally, we become obsessed with thoughts of using. Physically, we develop a compulsion to continue using regardless of all the consequences. Spiritually, we become totally self-centered in the course of our addictions. Looking at addiction as a disease makes sense to a lot of addicts because in our experience, addiction is progressive, incurable, and can be fatal unless arrested. In Narcotics Anonymous, we deal with every aspect of our addiction, not just its most obvious symptom, or uncontrollable drug use. The aspects of our disease are numerous. By practicing this program, we each discover the ways in which our addiction affects us personally. Regardless of the individual effects of addiction on our lives, all of us share some common characteristics. Through working the first step, we will address the obsession, the compulsion, the denial, and what many have termed the spiritual void. As we examine and acknowledge all these aspects of our disease, we start to understand our powerlessness. Many of us have had problems with the idea that as addicts we are obsessive and compulsive. The idea that these words applied to us may have made us cringe. However, obsession and compulsion are aspects of our powerlessness. We need to understand and acknowledge the presence in our lives if our mission of powerlessness is to be complete. Obsession for us is never-ending stream of thought relating to using drugs, running out of drugs, getting more drugs, and so on. We simply can't get these thoughts out of our minds. In our experience, compulsion is an irrational impulse to continue using drugs no matter what happens as a result. We just can't stop. We address obsession and compulsion here as they relate to our drug use because when we first come into the program, our drug addiction is how we identify with each other in the program. As we continue in our recovery, we will see how these aspects of our addiction can manifest themselves in many areas of our lives. Denial is a part of our disease that makes it difficult, if not impossible, for us to acknowledge reality. In our addiction, denial protects us from seeing the reality of what our life has become. We often told ourselves that given the right set of circumstances, we might still be able to bring our life under control. Always skillful at defending our actions, we refuse to accept responsibility for the damage done by our addiction. We believe that if we tried long and hard enough, substitute one drug for another, switch friends, or change our living arrangements, our occupations, our life would be improved. These rationalizations repeatedly failed us, yet we continued to cling to them. We denied that we had a problem with drugs, regardless of all the evidence to the contrary. We lied to ourselves, believing that we could use again successfully. We justified our actions, despite the wreckage around us resulting from our addiction. The spiritual part of our disease, the part that we may recognize only by a feeling of emptiness and loneliness when we first get clean, is perhaps one of the most difficult aspects of addiction for us. Because this part of our disease affects us so profoundly and so personally, we may be overwhelmed when we think about applying a program of recovery to it. However, we need to keep in mind that recovery doesn't happen overnight for anyone. As we start to look at the effects of our disease, we are sure to see that our lives have become unmanageable. We see it in all the things that are wrong with our lives. Again, our experiences are individual and vary widely from addict to addict. Some of us realize our lives have become unmanageable because we felt out of control. Most of us began to feel guilty about our drug use. Some of us have lost everything, our homes, our families, our jobs, our self-respect. Some of us learned how to function as human beings, never learned how to function as human beings at all. Some of us spent time in jails and institutions, and some of us have come very close to death. Whatever our individual circumstances in our lives can be governed by obsessive, compulsive, self-seeking behavior, and the end results have been unmanageability. Perhaps we arrived in AA without recognizing the problems we had for what they were. Because of our self-centeredness, we are often the last ones to realize that we are addicts. Many of us were persuaded by friends or family to begin attending NA meetings. Other members received even strong encouragement from the court. No matter how it occurred, our long-standing illusions had to be shattered. I had to replace the now before we could face the truth of our addiction. Many of us recall the moment of clarity when we came face to face with our disease. All the lies, all the pretense, all the rationalizations we had used to justify where we stood as a result of our drug use stopped working. Who and what we were became more clear. We could no longer avoid the truth. We found that we cannot recover without the ability to be honest. Many of us came to NA after spending years of practicing dishonesty. However, we can learn to be honest, and we must begin to try. Learning to be honest is an ongoing process. We are able to become progressively more honest as we work steps and continue to stay clean. In the first step, we begin to practice spiritual principles of honesty by admitting the truth about our drug use. Then we can go on to admit the truth about our life. We face what is not the way things should be or should not be. We face what is not the way things could be or should be. It doesn't matter where we come from or how good or bad we think we've had it. When we find to turn the narcotics around us, in 12 steps we begin to find relief. I'll be right back. I'm getting a little thirsty, so I'll be back. As we begin working the first step, it's important to ask yourself some basic personal questions. Can I control my use of drugs? No. Am I willing to stop? Yes. Am I willing to do whatever it takes to recover? Working on it. Given a choice between finding a new way of life in NA and continuing our addiction, recovery begins to appeal to us. I'm sorry, I didn't realize how many pages were in there. And at least another 2, 4, 6, 7. I'll take a fifth rest. Begin to let go of our reservations with parts of ourselves we won't surrender to the program. Most of us do have some reservations when we first got clean. Even so, we need to find ways of addressing them. Reservations can be anything. A belief that because we have a problem with one particular drug, we can still use it, placing condition on our recovery, such as only staying clean as long as our expectations are met. A belief that we can still be involved with people associated with our addiction. A belief that we can use again after a certain amount of time clean. Conscious or unconscious decision to work on certain steps. With the help of other recovering addicts, we can find ways to put our reservations behind us. The most important thing for us to know about reservations is that by keeping them, we are reserving a place in our program for relapse. Recovery begins when we start to apply the spiritual principles contained in 12 steps into all areas of our lives. We realize, however, that we cannot begin this process unless we stop using drugs. Total abstinence from all drugs is the only way we can begin to overcome our addiction. While abstinence is the beginning, our only hope for recovery is a profound emotional and spiritual change. Our experience shows that it's necessary for us to be willing to do anything it takes to obtain this precious gift of recovery. In recovery, we'll be introduced to spiritual principles such as surrender, honesty, and acceptance required for the first step. If we faithfully practice these principles, they will transform our perceptions and the way we live our lives. When we first begin to practice these principles, they really have been unnatural to us. We take a deliberate effort on our part to make the honest admission called for step 1. Even though we're admitting our addiction, we may still wonder if this program will really work. Acceptance of our addiction is something that goes beyond our conscious admission. When we accept our addiction, we gain the hope of recovery. We begin to believe on a deep level that we too can recover. We begin to let go of our doubts and truly become to terms with our disease. We become open to change, we surrender. As we work the first step, we find that surrender is not what we thought it was. In the past, we probably thought surrender as something that only weak and cowardly people did. We saw only two choices: either we keep fighting to control our using, or just cave in completely and let our lives fall to pieces. We felt we were in a battle to control our using, and that if we surrender, the drugs would win. In recovery, we find that surrender involves letting go of our reservations about recovery and become willing to try a different approach to living life. The process of surrender is extremely personal for each of us. Only we, as individuals, know when we've done it. We stress the importance of surrender, for it is very true for it is the very process that enables us to recover. When we surrender, we know in our hearts that we had enough. We're tired of fighting. The relief comes over us and we finally realize that the struggle is over. No matter how hard we fought, we finally reached the point of surrender where we realized that we couldn't stop using drugs on our own. We were able to admit our powerlessness over our addiction. We gave up completely. Even though we didn't know exactly what would happen, we gathered up our courage and admitted our powerlessness. We gave up the illusion that we can control our using, thereby opening doors to recovery. Many of us begin the process of surrender when we identify ourselves in any meeting with our name and words, I am an addict. Once we admit that we are addicts and that we cannot stop using on our own, we're able to stay clean on a daily basis with the help of other recovering addicts and Narcotics Anonymous. The paradox of this admission is evidence once we work the first step. As long as we think we can control our drug use, we are almost forced to continue. The minute we admit we are powerless, we never have to use again. This reprieves from having to use the most profound gift we can receive for what saves our life. Through our collective experience, we have found that we can accomplish together what we cannot do alone. It's necessary for us to seek help from other recovering addicts. As we attend meetings regularly, we can find great comfort in the experiences of those traveling this path with us. Coming to NA has been described by many members as coming home. We find ourselves welcomed and accepted by other recovering addicts. We finally find a place where we belong. Though we are sure to be helpful by sharing with care meetings, we need to find a sponsor to help us in our recovery. Beginning with the first step, a sponsor can share with his or her own experiences with the steps. Listening to our sponsor's experience, applying it to our own life, is how we take advantage of one of the most beautiful and practical aspects of recovery. The therapeutic value of one addict helping another. We get in our meetings that I can't, but we can. Actually, working with a sponsor will give us some first-hand experience with this. Through our developing relationship with our sponsor, we learn about the principles of trust. And following the suggestion of our sponsor instead of only our own ideas, we learn the principles of open-mindedness and willingness. Following the suggestion of our sponsor instead of only our ideas, we learn the principles of open-mindedness and willingness. A sponsor will help us work steps in recovery. Talking honestly with our sponsor about our drug use and how it affects our life will help us work the first step thoroughly. We need to always remember where it came from and where our addiction took us. We have a daily reprieve from our active addiction. Each day we accept the fact we cannot use drugs. Each day we accept the fact that we cannot use drugs successfully.
What's this? A letter for me.
Getting there. The process of recovery isn't easy. It takes great courage and perseverance to continue to recover day after day. Part of the recovery process is to move forward in spite of whatever may stand in our way. Because long-lasting change in recovery happens slowly, we'll turn to the first step again and again. Even long periods of absence do not guarantee us continued freedom from the pain and trouble addiction can bring. The symptoms of our disease can always return. We find that we are powerless in ways that we never imagined. This is where we begin to understand how things we try to control are in reality completely beyond our control. No matter how our disease displays itself, we must take its deadly nature into account. As we do, we develop a fuller awareness of the nature of our disease. The disease of addiction can manifest itself in a variety of mental obsession and compulsive actions that have nothing to do with drugs. We sometimes find ourselves obsessed and behaving compulsively over things we may never had problems with until we stop using drugs. We may once again try to fill the awful emptiness we sometimes feel with something outside ourselves. Anytime we find ourselves using something to change the way we feel, we need to apply the principle of the first step. We are never immune from having our life become unmanageable, even after years of recovery. The problems pile up, and our research for coping with them dwindle, and we feel out of control and into much pain to do anything constructive for ourselves. We feel overwhelmed by life, and that feeling seems to make everything worse. When our lives seem to be falling apart, we reapply ourselves to the basics of any program. We stay in close contact with our sponsor, work the steps, and go to meetings. We surrender again, knowing that victory lies in the admission of defeat. Feeling the love and acceptance we find in the fellowship of Narcotics Anonymous allows us to begin recovering from our addiction, where we learn a new way to live. The emptiness from which we suffered is filled through working and living the 12 steps. We learn that addiction is being addressed in all its complexity by a simple program. We have found a solution to our hopelessness. There is a deeply spiritual nature to our program of recovery. The 12 steps of Narcotics Anonymous will take us on a journey that will far exceed our expectations. Working living steps will lead us to spiritual awakening. Step 1, the beginning of this next spiritual journey. To get started on this journey, we must become willing to surrender this program and its principles, for our future hinges on our willingness to grow spiritually. We're starting a new way of life, one that offers great joy and happiness. However, recovery doesn't exempt us from pain. Living life on its life's terms combines moments of happiness with moments of sadness. Wonderful events are mixed with painful moments. We'll experience a full range of feelings about the events of our life. By honestly looking at what we have become in our addiction, we recognize the powerlessness and unmanageability of our lives. We move beyond our reservations. We accept our addiction, surrender, and experience the hope that recovery offers. We realize that we can no longer go on as we have been. We are ready for a change. We are willing to try another way. With our willingness, we are move on to step 2. In a moment, I'll read the ending for just today. And I'll finish my reading with just today reading. Just today, tell yourself. Just today, my thoughts will be on my recovery, living and enjoying life without the use of drugs. Just today, I'll have faith in someone in AA who believes in me and wants to help me in my recovery. Just today, I'll have a program I will try to follow to the best of my ability. Just today, through NA, I'll try to get a better perspective on my life. Just today, I'll be unafraid. My thoughts will be on my new associations, people I'm using, who are finding a way of life. So long as I follow that way, I have nothing to fear. And have a great day. Like and subscribe if you like. Have a blessed day. Just for today.